Ahoy hoy gang, if this is your first time with us, welcome! And if you're joining us from a previous video, hey, we love to see it, and I hope you're doing well. It's Season 9! We're fast approaching the end of the pre-movie era, and looking through this season, it's largely fine. Just sort of fine. So how does a fine 9 stand up in the grind in the grand world of season reviews? Well, there's only one way to find out, and 3 questions that must be asked. What worked, what failed, what intergalactic communication will be curtailed? Ooh, it's looking so fine here in Season 9. Oh, it's so much. Just so much. The boys for now are having a casting call for a replacement for Boo Boo, and Tina dresses up as a guy to take a look at the venue and to prove she isn't boy crazy. She then ends up playing out fantasies in her head that are just boy band musical numbers, and that's most of the episode. Though we would get several special guest stars. Damon would be played by the singing snowman Josh Gad, Jesse would be played by Daveed Diggs, a man of frozen trains and musicals, Rory O'Malley would be Chad, and fun fact, he would also be in Central Park opposite Josh Gad. And Andrew Rannells would be Hayden, Andrew being a huge part of Big Mouth as well. It's actually one of the more guest star-filled episodes of the entire series, and it's just sorta there. Though it should be stated, most of these actors would show up in the show later on. The B story is Bob, Linda, and the kids looking after a baby rat for Teddy and hiding it from Hugo, since there can't be rats in restaurants. Okay, you got it. Yeah. There's no real payoff to it. Isn't it weird how to foster animals? Now granted, I've been around fostered animals and my wife has done a ton of fostering, so I'm used to that kind of stuff. Maybe I'm just desensitized to it, but it just doesn't really have any kind of payoff. It doesn't really do anything. By the third act, the family is going to get Tina and the rat just never matters after it. It's just in a box till the end of the episode. Which, like, yeah, sure, why does it need to matter after that? But also, why have it in there when you could have just gone all in on the Boys for Now stuff and shoved another 2 songs into it? Have everyone go with her and have Bob interact with the, I don't know, singer dads, and Linda goes to see merch. Maybe Louise thinks she saw Boo Boo, but there's no way it's Boo Boo, and she and Jean go running after him, and then by the end of the episode, just like in this one, it reveals that, yeah, Boo Boo is rejoining his beloved boys crew. Just so close to great. And yet, it's just okay. If you like the Boys for Now stuff and the boy band elements, you will probably love this episode. But for me, it was just completely and utterly there. Just one of the Boys for now, is a dancing in the vicinity of your heart 7 out of 10. The kids want to win the Dune Buggy at the Funtime Arcade and start devising a plan to get the tickets for it. Mr. Fishoder even offers to help them train and pull off the ultimate heist, which sounds way too kind for him, but you don't think about it. The kids get their usual gang together to pull off the heist, including the wonderful Ollie, whose special power is he knows how everyone is gonna die. Awesome! Which I don't know what's going on this episode, but it is easily one of the funniest of the show. Fun fact, Jack McBrayer and Robert Smigel are in the episode, and so you get just great Triumph the Insult Dog playing off of Jack McBrayer, which was a common thing on Conan O'Brien since Jack McBrayer worked on it, and that's where Triumph is from. But it was also even a part of the short-lived Triumph the Insult Dog series on Adult Swim. They have phenomenal chemistry and really play off of each other well, on top of Kevin Kline being absolutely terrific, and the episode as a whole being elevated because of those voices involved. Sure enough, Mr. Fishoder is a part owner at Family Fun Time, and used the kids to show how the games could be rigged. However, Louise figured out they were being set up and took the time to win the legendary Wheelie Mammoth from Wonder Wharf, which would actually be referenced later on, which is fantastic. The B story of the episode? Teddy gets Bob and Linda a chicken so they can get fresh eggs. What? Oh look, the chicken ends up laying just 1 egg, and they decide to just buy eggs again. Spend the $4. Ha. Ha 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 ha. The A story is pretty all-encompassing and is the obvious focus of the episode. And the B story is really just more, and then they have to be doing something. What if chicken? Like, yeah? I guess, sure. It's not overdone at all. No, go ahead. And yet, even a weak B story can't extinguish my love of a good heist. You got a heist or a train, or worse, a train heist? Top of my book. The Taking of Funtime 123 is a healy-wheeling 9 out of 10. The kids are a part of a business club called Tweentrepreneurs with Tina's friend group, including, you guessed it, Tammy, Jocelyn, Jimmy Jr., and Zeke. Wow, I'm sure everything will work out great. What's that? Tammy and the group declare themselves the managers that don't do any work while everyone else puts together dumbass woodblock buddies? Awesome. Oh no, say it ain't so. Tina gets mad with managerial business power and starts telling Bob how to run his restaurant better by basically making it a McDonald's and taking all the heart, charm, and creativity out so that he can be pushing numbers faster. Oh man, what a Chad. I mean, oh no, who could ever see that coming? The kids work less because they aren't appreciated, product quality drops, and they have to figure out how to sell googly eyes so that they don't take on a huge amount of debt? You've seen it before. Yeah, I don't even have to tell you what happens in the episode. You know you've seen it before. You could see it in your head right now. And like even the B story just feels so the same. Oh look, Bob and Linda deal with a dine and dasher played by Thomas Lennon. Oh, he gets more and more creative with his antics and just keeps messing with them for a reason. It's fine. It's background noise, and sometimes that's okay, I guess, but this just feels like a paint-by-numbers lowest common denominator episode. It is everyone boiled down to their most base selves. It's the closest I think we have to any kind of Flanderization to the characters. This is just so... I don't know. This feels like someone's homeschooled cousin's third favorite episode. Oh look, Tina is going on a power trip and Bob is exacerbated by something. The sun sure does rise. That sure is good old Burger Bob's. You don't even need to hear the audio to figure out what's going on either. It's that familiar, which is frankly a feat in and of itself. And just not in any kind of good way. Tweentrepreneurs is a sanded yet splintering 6 out of 10. It's our Halloween episode. Woo! The kids are trick-or-treating and they all have their candy stolen by a mysterious menace that they chase into the Wonder Wharf haunted mansion. Turns out it's Dr. Yap that took the candy so that the kids wouldn't destroy their teeth and he wouldn't be fixing cavities all winter. That's the bulk of the episode. And it's honestly terrific. The jokes are fresh, Louise isn't the source of conflict, and it has fantastical settings in the haunted house that actually look kind of impressive. There's layered lighting and characters moving and jumping out that they didn't need to include, but they really genuinely put a lot of thought into how they wanted the house to be laid out, and that means something. They're still respecting the viewer's time. Like, yeah, the last episode wasn't amazing, but it still had jokes. It still didn't feel like I wasted my time. And when I'm only saying that about, 3 episodes at this point, that's saying something.
Oh, he's talking so much about the A story because the B story sucks, right?
Nope. Teddy is in a handyman decorating battle with fellow handyman Glenn, played by James Adomian. Glenn is going all out and putting in fog ghosts and a flying bat, and Teddy gets desperate, and he had a stationary spider, but then he makes it move, and he makes a spider with frickin' chainsaws in all its legs, and it's spinning around and eviscerates the bat like some kind of hellish Beyblade, and it is amazing. I have not laughed that hard since the last season, which does not sound that impressive when it was only 4 episodes ago. That butterfly scene in the finale will never not be funny. Just whoosh, there they go. And they're both a perfect example of how Bob's Burgers manages to get the true, belly laughs it gets. It maintains this steady tempo. It lulls you into a false sense of security as things are just steady, 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 even episode by episode, and then just spider with chainsaws just starts spinning. Steady, steady, steady. Look, some credits roll. There you go. They know to just toss those things in so that if you're paying attention, you lose it. And if you're not, and you catch the episode on a rerun and see it for the first time, you get a deeper appreciation for it and then lose it. So much of the delivery of the show is just normal conversations, like the end with Yap and the kids. They're both speaking at reasonable volumes and they're telling Yap how dumb his idea was. That's great! Even get the workers involved on it. Of course you have the kids tell the adult he screwed up. Why not? It's fun. The whole thing is fun and I'm really kind of about it. It's definitely up there in my favorite Halloween episodes of the show, and honestly might be my favorite. Nightmare on Ocean Avenue Street is a handyman hero admiring 10 out of 10. Mr. Frond accidentally leaks an informative hip-hop video the kids did for him, and the entire school is making fun of them for it. And so they decide that they're going to get revenge by flying a banner at Frond's hotel conference that spills the tea he spilt on all of his colleagues. They go to the airstrip and try and enlist the help of good old upskirt Kurt, still played by Will Forte. Kurt will fly their banner if they help him get over his fears and perfect his move for the air show so he can finally prove he's better than his sister. Okay. Kurt, I'm fine with still being Will Forte. It makes sense that he'd be Will Forte. I really wish Laverne was a special guest or something. But nope, just Brooke Dillman doing like one of the 4 voices she does on the show. But that's okay. You know, I have been critical of Dave Herman before. I'll be critical of Brooke Dillman. You know, honestly, I'm surprised John Benjamin isn't more characters in this show. He's not a lot of special recurring characters other than like Miss LeBons and Gus. It just feels like there's something missing there with Laverne just being a normal cast member. Have it be, I don't know, Kathy Bates would be fun. Anybody. Really. Anyone. The kids talk to Kurt, get him to overcome his fears, does the move, and he and his sister learned their dad pit them against each other so that they can be better pilots. Isn't that great parenting? The B story is Bob and Teddy making paper airplanes for the contest at the air show, and Bob wins a blender. I'll say this. I love Kurt. Think he's a great character. Would have loved if he was the B story, though. Focus on Bob and the paper airplanes, because all of that and seeing how giddy he was as he had his dream of the perfect plane was utterly fantastic. The rest of the episode is just sort of fine. It's just disappointing that a Kurt story's funniest bit is just Will Forte talking about all the huevo rancheros he ate. Like, cool, man. I don't know. Maybe it's just in the shadow of a great Halloween episode, but this one just wore me down something fierce. Live and Let Fly is a ribbon cutting 6 out of 10. You know what? This episode perfectly proves that it was absolutely just Live and Let Fly, because this is great. Bob is driving when he sees Edith hoofing it and decides to give her a lift. She tells him how she can't drive because she's been experiencing spells and starts threatening him with her using the seizure procedure if he doesn't keep driving her around town as she steals quilt squares. What an A story. The B story has the kids at this weird Gatsby party where they think it was the kids' idea, but the more the party goes on, the more it's obvious the parents are just influencers addicted to social media and do everything for the gram. It's a weirdly wholesome B story, I'll admit. Oh, and the C story is Linda teaches Teddy how to eat sushi and he is just constantly revolted by it. Like, the kids are actively trying to help this kid not have to deal with a Gatsby party and just have the simple, casual birthday he always wanted. There's a lot of sweetness and wholesomeness to an episode like this. We find out Edith is actually something of a rebel, and she just wanted to include the freaks of the freak show in the quilt that represented the town's history, but she was banned from it. She even goes on to tell Bob that the reason she cares so much is because they helped raise her and kept her out of trouble, and therefore they shouldn't be forgotten by time. Oh, and we meet Sergeant Bosco's mom, who leads the quilt group. It's just Dave Herman again. Like, see, again, branch it out a little bit. But even with that, this is the charm of Bob's Burgers. This is an Edith episode, and while we don't get a ton about her, we get enough to see her in a new and refreshed light. She can be something more after you watch this episode. Also, like, Edith is Larry Murphy, who is putting in work this episode. He's got to do a lot of Teddy and even more Edith, and it just shows how talented he is that he can put so much emotion behind Edith's lines. I don't know, I really loved this episode, and no story seemed to go on for too long. You get an appreciation for Edith, Bob learns more about his community, and there's a surprising emotional core to an episode that didn't need it, but thrived because of it. Bobby Driver is a gas pill taking 10 out of 10. It's our Thanksgiving episode! The family tries to save a turkey that was going to a slaughterhouse under the guise of being pardoned. They steal the turkey, a reporter joins them as they try and get the turkey to a sanctuary, and by the end of the episode, they're dropping the turkey off at the farm of the man that owns the two-assed goat. Oh wow, the lieutenant mayor is a bad guy. This episode is the equivalent of watching an egg fry. The family goes on a frantic fall drive with a turkey in the trunk. That's the episode. Still not the worst Thanksgiving episode, but also just nothing worth caring about in my book. It's again beautifully colored and very vibrant, but it's just so damn samey. There's never a moment where everything just clicks. It's like a lot of spinning gears that are off track ever so slightly and can't join up. It's missing that one character, that one B story that really brings it all together. I don't know. There are some appealing elements to watching an egg fry like the sizzle, but overall it's just an empty experience. The music is nothing, the scenes feel reused even though they're not, and it's just the same voices over and over again. The charm of holiday episodes is you can have a special guest star here and there. You can have a character that isn't, the same ones we've seen. And we get 3 brand new characters, all of which played by people that have played characters frequently in the past. It's one of those things like, you may not realize it, but your brain does. And hearing those voices again and again with them not being in the core cast just feels very samey, very repetitive, even though they're trying in those roles. It doesn't really matter till you think on it, is all I'm saying. I Bob Your Pardon is a lane-changing, turkey-saving 6 out of 10. Gene and Alex are hanging out, but when Gene refuses to roller skate with Courtney, Alex joins up instead, and Gene wants his friend back, so he fights for his friendship through the power of roller dance. Cool. The B story has Bob, Linda, and Teddy weirded out by a lady sitting in her car and just looking at the restaurant over and over. They keep running through scenarios until Bob goes over and talks to her and finds out she's an agoraphobic who wanted to see the restaurant as a way to sort of force herself to interact with society. I gotta say, it's not even played up as a joke or anything. She's genuinely frantic and scared. But Bob talks to her and listens and tries to help however he can. He's not telling her to move. He's not telling her he'll call the cops. He's encouraging her to take the steps she knows she needs to make. It's sort of sweet in a way. The B story isn't all that funny, but it does show that Bob is a good guy that wants to help people at the end of the day. He could have just gone, I'm busy at the restaurant, I don't really need to deal with this. But he doesn't. He takes the time to stop and help someone. Would Peter do that? Would Homer? The A story is just nothing, and I think I can say, I don't like Alex. I'm glad Gene has a friend, but I've never seen an Alex adventure I enjoyed at all, or an episode that was better because Alex was there. The episode is a toss-up. You either love Gene episodes like this or hate them, and honestly, it's just not for me. Roller, I hardly know her, is a skate through the heart 6 out of 10. I'm not gonna lie, Season 9 definitely has more than a couple just head-scratchingly bizarre episodes. Tina has a new science partner in new show character Sismita, played by Aparna Nancherla, who would also play Moon Tobin in The Great North, which bugged me why she sounded so familiar. I could have swore I couldn't put my finger on it. She does a great job. She is actually a fantastic voice actor, and I'm glad to hear her in more things. Tina and Sismita decide to broadcast out to aliens and journal their findings. However, Henry basically warns them of the dark forest theory, which it makes sense why Henry would know about that, but that's not the sci-fi element you want to bring in. And it's boiled down to basically, you don't reach out to aliens because you don't know if they're gonna be friendly. However, Tina wants to believe in the aliens, and Henry isn't risking it, so he has Louise and Jean help him rig Tina and Sismita's dish so that he can communicate with them instead of the aliens and scare them into never doing their project again. Oh, and Sismita likes Henry. Neat. I like that Henry gets chicks. Good for him. Alright, so a lot is going on in just the A story. But that's okay. What's Bob's crew doing this fine day, huh? Bob accidentally bought a bunch of tiny coat racks and tries to sell them because he doesn't want to own a bunch of tiny coat racks. Oh look, the tiny coat racks come in handy when it rains and people need to hang their jackets up. You know, on the tiny coat racks. I had to check and see if I dreamt this episode. But no, it's just probably one of the most absurd episodes of the whole show. And I just had to laugh at just, the tiny coat racks. Look at them. They're so tiny. Not a bad thing, just a, rack fact. I don't know, man. If you're partying and you and your friends are just sort of grooving in the zone, put on this episode of Bob's Burgers just out of the blue and see how they react. I would love to know how a new viewer would react to this episode. It is so weird in the best way to me. UFO No You Didn't is a signal blocking tiny coat rack marketing. 9 out of 10. Yeah, he's just got these little tiny coat racks. I mean, it's our Christmas episode! Ho, ho, ho! The kids want a sled, and Logan and his friends are having a snowball fight where the sledding is, so they have to fight fire with fire and have an epic snowball fight against Logan with the help of snowball legend Mandy, played by the returning great Jillian Bell. Make it Nat. Bring Nat in. Have Nat just come in her pink limousine and just start tearing Logan and his friends apart with some kind of snowball Gatling gun or something. I think that would have been great. The B story? Bob helps Linda knit. Everybody is doing something. It's okay. It's perfectly there. Logan is actually a really solid antagonist, and sure, you need a good snow day snowball fight episode for your show. There's just not a ton to say about the episode, and not a lot to personally really love either. It's not the best Christmas episode, it's not the worst Christmas episode. I feel like I'm saying that a lot. Teddy isn't getting his hand caught and thrashing around like a trapped animal next to the fridge, which, as we all know, is the gold standard. The episode is just perfectly there. Weirdly, it feels too normal compared to the other episodes in this season. I think that's my big issue with it. Last episode, we get aliens and tiny coat racks. Next episode is oiled up for your pleasure. This episode is just so commonplace. It's just so there. But that's okay, because it's really kind of the encapsulation of how a snow day feels. The parents are inside working towards Christmas and the kids are just having a great day on a hill. I can't be too mad at that. Better Off Sled is a day in December occurring. 7 out of 10. Linda goes to an essential oil party at Susan's, and when Gail hears about Linda getting in on the bottom of the essential oil MLM market, she takes the kids to free her sister from its slick, sinister clutches. Susan would be played by special guest Stephanie Aline. Linda is always aware of what's going on and even recognizes when she's getting pitched to, and straight up tells Susan she can do this stuff and not think about it because she's pretty and people are just going to naturally want to listen to her. Which is why we actually have Reggie here. I love that it's everybody and then Reggie. Still played by Eddie Pepitone and everything, but yeah, Reggie's a part of this story. More involved than I think he's ever been in anyone else's story, which is hysterical to me. Everybody is doing their own things this season. Even earlier in the Quilt Club, Frond is a member of the Quilt Club. You are seeing people outside of their home environments. You are seeing people doing other things, and that's fantastic. Oh, and Louise loves a puppy and wants to smuggle it out of Susan's and keep it because it's a very good boy. The B story has Teddy and Bob moving a bed for Mr. Huggins, who's trying to get back into the dating world. Oh look, Teddy and Bob are struggling with the incredibly heavy mattress and all the extra stairs. It's generic sitcom furniture moving story A. It's fine. The essential oils are fine. Again, just feels a little too normal, but what can you do? Look, Bob is exacerbated. Teddy doesn't have great ideas. Mr. Huggins is there. Linda's smarter than she leads on, but she's also, Linda. I gotta say, I at least appreciate Gail is like, no, she's gonna fall for it like I did. I'm like, hey, Gail is not completely moronic. She is not totally smooth-brained. She knows what she's doing, and I kind of appreciate that for her. Lorenzo's oil, no Linda's, is a fragrant yet slick 7 out of 10. Helen's back, and she's determined to find her late husband's tiny Japanese snail sculpture that's worth a fortune. Yeah, okay, sure. She would also still be played by Caitlin Olsen. So she has Teddy and the family look around an apartment complex her dead husband owned, while Linda tries to set Teddy up with Helen, and Tina tries to get him to see the appeal of one of the tenants, Kathleen, played by Sharon Hogan, who would be a recurring character throughout the show. And Bob and Jean fix a sink. You know what? I don't hate it. Though they do go all in on Helen being just a horrible person this episode. She's willing to have Teddy get seriously injured just so she can have her precious little snail. I don't know. You don't have to make her that overly apathetic to him. It just gets kinda excessive after a point. Like, you had plenty of just natural chemistry with Teddy and Kathleen, where Kathleen's showing him stuff about her culture, and they're just hanging out, he's making her laugh, and they're having a good time. Teddy's not even that heavy into Helen anymore. It just feels weird. But then you have Bob and Jean fixing a sink, and you just don't care anymore. They're bonding over a job well done, and it's sweet. Louise is using her sleuthing skills to figure out where the treasure is, and there's an elevator. Wacky! It's just all the excessive Helen being played by the worst giant bird you know feels like a hat on a hat after a point. Kathleen is shown to already be great, and she's brought to life incredibly well and seems like a fantastic person for Teddy to be with. Helen never gave that energy in house sitting, not once. Here you actually have someone that seems to be pretty into Teddy. And again, Bob and Jean fix a sink and bond over a job well done for a blind man. What's not to love there? Could have done without Linda and Tina this episode, but hey, what can you do? The Helen Hunt is a sluggish, yet elevated, 8 out of 10. Hey look, it's our Valentine's Day episode, and one of the worst episodes in the entire series, no question. It's just that good. Bob and Linda have been fighting, and after a movie gets cut off because of a fire at the theater, everyone goes home on a super awkward car ride where the kids try and cut the tension by telling their parents what they think actually happened in the British rom-com they were watching. That's right, folks. It's our anthology episode, and it's... You know what? I was gonna say, and it's there, but it feels like an active wasting of my time. It feels like the cruel antithesis to everything Bob's Burgers is. Go on, defend it in the comments. I dare you. I dare you to stand up for Bed, Bob, and Beyond. The lead British characters in this episode would be Princess Paula McCartney, played by Lucy Davis, and Scott John Dan Steve, played by everyone's favorite tick, Peter Serafinowicz. They just keep imagining more and more British things to happen to this couple, while always reminding Bob and Linda that no one should be upset if a bed was broken by people jumping on it. It's not a big deal. Beds break all the time, you guys. Seriously, don't think about it. It's just dumb. Very, very dumb. It's not even like a funny dumb either. It passes that event horizon like 3 minutes in. It just feels like an endless string of nothing that culminates in Louise telling Bob and Linda to not be upset about what they were fighting over, or, just an example, a bed breaking, and then poof, everything is fixed. It exists to do nothing, and is the worst Valentine's Day episode, and while not the absolute worst episode of the show, definitely down there. Bed Bob and Beyond is a Lou-destroying 4 out of 10. I told you there were absurd episodes this season. Sometimes they're good. Sometimes they're tiny coat racks. Who doesn't want to buy a tiny coat rack? Sometimes they're this. Tina gets her theme of zombies picked for the dance and starts to get excited until she finds herself bonding with a goose at the park, and the goose follows her around wherever she goes. That's right, folks. Tina falls for a goose. What? Okay, hang on. What's the B story? Linda helps Gretchen find a good guy by impersonating her on a dating app. Cool. I mean, at least we get more Gretchen? But her stories are just way more hit or miss. She's no Teddy, and honestly, I think Linda and Teddy work better for adventures now than honestly Gretchen and Linda ever did. Gretchen just feels phased out at this point. But do you just absolutely love Every Which Way But Goose? Is it just your absolute favorite Tina episode? Let me know in the comments below, because frankly, I'm expecting 0 comments. I'm expecting you to do nothing. Be the change you want to see in the world, you goose lover. I just always skip this episode because all I can remember is Tina falling for a frickin' goose and Jimmy Jr. going up into the rafters to help the goose and that whole scene. It's an odd choice that does very, very odd things and never really sticks the landing on any of them. Every Which Way But Goose is a duck avoiding 5 out of 10. Louise wins being principal for a day and doesn't get to do anything fun with it. So she bribes Miss Schnurr with a chance to use the principal's private bathroom and starts enacting the change she wants to see, even helping Mr. Frond keep his job when the principal wanted to fire him and replace him with his brother-in-law. Louise sees that Mr. Frond genuinely loves the kids and actively wants to help them. He's got all their issues memorized and is always going through the hallways to make sure as many of them as possible feel seen. That's actually really touching in a way and sort of recontextualizes Mr. Frond in Louise's eyes. In a lot of ways, it's Louise's version of Bobby Driver. She's seeing in real time that Frond doesn't just want to punish her, he ideally wants to help everyone, even her. He's flawed, but he's trying at the end of the day, and the more you find out about him, the more you at least get why he is how he is now. Frond has been realized at this point, and as we get deeper into the show, oddly enough, the characters get more and more built out, not flanderized and shoved into corners. Frond was a part of Bobby Driver because of course he loves to knit and quilt, and it makes sense he'd be there. And like we'll see later in the season, sometimes people are just doing their hobbies and run into the Belchers. These characters are living their own lives in each and every episode and growing, and it's great. The B story has Bob getting over the burger flipping yips and ends up wearing Jimmy Pesto's briefs to get his groove back. It's honestly a superhuman story that makes sense for Bob to suffer from yips. I really kind of loved the whole episode. I thought it would just be a power-hungry Louise, but there was a lot more heart in the episode than I was expecting. Granted, not too much of that respect and growth is going to carry over to the next episode, but it's still nice to see. The Fresh Prince Pal is a someone's sister married to 9 out of 10. Bob is in a daze and just not able to focus as he collapses in on himself like a dying star. So the family force him to leave the restaurant and take a day off. While Bob is out experiencing his day and wondering about the tiny coat racks he sold earlier in the season, Mudflap comes to the restaurant and asks Linda to help throw her a baby shower for her fellow biker Goldie, who, you guessed it, gives birth in the restaurant, and that's the whole story there. It's fine and predictable. But let's look at the Bob story. Bob chases Mr. Fish Odor to get a key, and we get a great song about trying to do nothing and rolling an orange down a street because why not? Doing nothing makes Mr. Fish Odor feel like the big sexy baby he is, I guess. I really love how Kevin Kline plays Mr. Fish Odor. He is just so off the cuff in the best way. He's great. He's absolutely great. So Bob ends up trapped in a bread truck inspecting his buns like some kind of bread pervert and gets dropped off in front of a sandwich shop run by Patricia, played by Tiffany Haddish, the ship AI from Solar Opposites. We also meet her love interest Steve, played by Steve Berg. Go Steve Berg. Bob sees Patricia is swamped and offers to help her on his day off. He doesn't want money, he doesn't want credit, he just wants to help a fellow restaurateur that seems swamped. And after they tackle a massive catering order, he feels accomplished. He has that spark back. It's Bob being passionate and loving cooking at the end of the day. What's not to love? He even closes up Patricia's shop for her so she can go on a date. Bob just genuinely loves helping people, and it feels like a truly cleansing episode. A rebirth, if you will. Get it? I'm not apologizing for it. I don't know. I love it. Even if the B story is just sort of predictable and more of the same. But having Mudflap there sort of makes it acknowledged that it's more of the same. That it's more just people are going to have life-changing experiences at Bob's. Bob is going to be a positive element in people's lives. Roman Bobaday is a 77 sandwich mastering 9 out of 10. Gene is annoying everyone with his mop handle jam, so he goes down to the kid hangout spot, the Oyster Bar, where he sees a giant blob of bioluminescent organisms that have moved into the Glencrest Yacht Club's dock. He's enchanted by their glow at night, and the yacht club wants to completely destroy the blob, so it's not there for their grand regatta. The kids team up with Sasha and Duncan to try and save it, eventually using Gene's specialty of smacking rods on things to splash the blob out of the dock and to safety. It's another Gene being fascinated by nature and wanting to learn more / save it. It's honestly perfectly serviceable, and again, John Michael Higgins sells the episode as the yacht club president. And having it be this sort of introspective appreciation of nature for Gene is great. It talks about the climate, talks about the preservation of nature, and I don't know, if you're gonna do an episode like that, this is kinda how you do it to a T. The B story is Jimmy Pesto going on vacation, so Trev is in charge and he starts hanging out with Bob and Linda, and we find out Trev really doesn't like making fun of people and he's just sorta a sweet guy when Jimmy isn't around. On the one hand, I like that we get a Trev episode finally for a change, and on the other, Gene is doing something that he loves and is fascinated by nature while slucking back oysters. You know what? I got quality on both my hands, gang. I didn't hate this episode at all, and genuinely, how could you hate any episode with Rice Darby in it? He's the best. He's the Darbyest. Wanna guess what Rice Darby's been in? Royal Crackers. Thought I hadn't brought it up in a minute. Thought I wouldn't bring it up again, huh? You're wrong. Man's just great. Duncan's just a treasure. I can't help that. What about Blob is a breadcrumb battered and fried? 9 out of 10. The kids go on a field trip to a marionette studio where Louise gets bored with the same old puppet activities and looks for something with a little more heat to it, leading her to constantly clash with Esther, the owner, who just wants to do the boring content because she's tired of being creative and it going nowhere. She sticks to what works. The B story has Bob helping a guy that's passing out flyers in front of his restaurant. The guy with a sick ferret and a wild hat with no name would actually be played by Tom Kenny. It's just a very hyper-energy B story coupled with a reflection in why we do what we do and what happens when the passion dries up. Louise is always frustrated by adults that aren't passionate about what they're doing. It's actually something that shows up throughout the show and makes her question if she'll be a boring adult when she grows up, and it makes sense. Bob and Linda are passionate to a fault. She's used to watching her dad whisper sweet nothings to a turkey and see her mom do whatever crazy thing she wants to do that week. She knows Esther can do something better and actually manages to pull the creativity out of the woman that she had shut herself off from. And we get to see Ron pursuing his passion of puppetry. Everyone loves Ron. It's a perfectly solid episode. I remember catching it as a rerun one night and being utterly blown away that it wasn't later in the show than it was. It's got a really solid and honestly way more relatable emotional core than I was ever expecting, and even though the B story is nonsense, it's chaotic in the best way. If you love it so much, why don't you marionette it is an untangled and high-flying 9 out of 10. While at a bowling alley, Bob runs into his radio hero, Clem Clements, who was fired from the station for rambling too much. This is where I think this episode would have really benefited from a guest star. Clem is played by Nick Offerman, who does a great job, sure, just you've heard this exact same voice before, arguably used to better effect. Oh look, the radio station manager is Rob Hubel, and Ron Funches is back. It's the usual Bob's Burgers recurring cast players, and while it's not a problem for the manager or the producer, it just makes Clem, who's supposed to be this inspiring broadcast voice, feel samey. I love Nick Offerman. They're just set up for so much more that they don't go with. Oh, and the B story has Linda making sweet potato fries and pies, since people enjoy sweet potato, and it upsets Bob, who doesn't want to do sweet potato fries. Clem steals a radio van and they do some renegade radio broadcasts to try and inspire people to listen to the radio when it has actual hosts and not automated systems. This episode came out in 2019. Were you listening to the radio in 2019? Didn't think so. I like the passion, but the episode is just predictable to a fault and just kind of flat. The jokes don't really land and it just sort of drags itself to the end, which is so disappointing because I usually love radio station episodes, and this kind of premise, though overused, is one of my favorites to see. This was the episode I was actually really excited to see since I had never seen it before this review, and when I got to it, it was just there. I don't know. I wanted something more, but I think that's just on me. Long-time listener, first-time Bob is a Renegade Radio rockin' 6 out of 10. The kids are being forced to run a mandatory mile for school on free ice cream scoop day, so they come up with a scheme to keep up with the slowest kid in school, sneak away to get ice cream, and come back to finish the mile. I'll say this. Courtney might actually be my favorite part of the story, and they have done an outstanding job of making Courtney not completely insufferable now. She actually works as a friend of Gene's. I'll take it. I will take him having a friend I can actually stand for a change. Alex is here. Alex is doing stuff. I don't care about Alex. And have Thomas Middleditch do more voices. If he's gonna be a recurring cast member, he could have been the radio guy. He could have done anything. The only thing he does in this entire show is Alex shenanigans. I mean, oh no, Gene gets caught, so all the kids pool their scoops together to give Gene his ice cream as they try to do the mile and get caught with Frond, hoping he can make them all redo it. The B story has Bob, Linda, and Teddy on the phone and hoping they can get some discounted tickets to Cake 2, now with more Patty. Oh look, Teddy got through with 3% battery life on his phone and he's talking their ear off. Oh, his phone died. Bob blows up at him. He still somehow manages to get tickets set aside and almost ruins it again. Yay. If there was ever a true filler episode, it would be this one. If you needed a 20-second episode for a 22-episode order, I would not be surprised if it was this one. It spins its wheels for 22 minutes and does literally nothing. It's perfectly existent and tells a story you could predict from a mile away. The Gene Mile is a 42 flavors combining 6 out of 10. Linda wants to join the PTA and brush elbows with the seemingly perfect PTA president, Joanne, played by the returning Jessica St. Clair. Colleen would actually have a voice change in this episode to Jamie Moyer, who would also show up on The Great North. Oh look, Linda finds out the PTA president is corrupt and just wants a dumb treasurer so it's easier to hide her spending. Huh. Oh, and the B story has Bob keep insulting an old Asian man that runs a hardware store that he just can't seem to do the right thing for. Ends up even buying the man a new bird, and it does nothing. I know it's supposed to be Bob failing over and over again and like, hee-hoo-hoo, look at him, he's screwing up. But it feels like such a Peter Griffin story. Except the only difference is Bob would actually feel bad about what he's doing to the store. And like, it's funny enough, I guess, it just doesn't do anything. And it's like, this is how we're winding down with the season? With an episode where they're like, I want Linda to be the treasurer because she's so dumb. Awesome. Which, like, I don't know, it's weird, but like, as I think on it, the hardware store Bob story might actually be the bridge too far. It's just awkward and normal and unsettling without enough comedic payoff for it to succeed at what it was going for. It's just, Even the conclusion to the A story is more just, oh look, wacky PTA hijinks. Woo! It's just such a disappointment. It could have been something just off the wall, amazing, fantastic, and it's just flat. I just didn't expect the end of the season to be so flavorless. PTA It Ain't So is an excessive parrot purchasing. 6 out of 10. And here we are, the season finale. Zeke got his last strike and his dad is tired of giving him chances, so he's going to send him off to a special school where he can get the discipline and guidance he needs. That is, unless the kids can get Zeke's prank of spitballing all the known curse words known to man onto the ceiling off the ceiling. Tina tries to stop them so that she can have Jimmy Jr. all to herself, because even more unnecessary conflict, I guess. This is also the first voiced appearance of the tiny karate kid Arnold Evans, played by Damon Wayans Jr. I will say this, he honestly makes that little karate kicking legend the most interesting part of the entire episode. The B story has Randy shooting his independent movie in the restaurant. I'll say it, worst season finale yet. It had the potential to be something and just peters out entirely. Could have been a gripping emotional Zeke episode, but no. Not really, we already got that. Let's have Tina take him through the ceiling because she knows the best places to look at naked boys. Awesome. We don't need another episode like Midday Run, so here's yet another dumb kid group saves Zeke and then Randy and Bob feud but ultimately get along episode. You've seen it, and you'll watch the episode and just be baffled. It's the season finale. Where the season finales before always had some weight, some gravitas. Here, it's just empty, and that's the most disappointing thing. I've been talking about how they respect the viewer, how they respect the viewer's time, how Bob's Burgers always has this baseline of quality. And the season finales usually meant something. They usually had an impact. They were larger or involved the community to some degree. Here it just falls flat and just kind of closes the season on nothing. Yes, Without My Zeke is a justice-bringing, roundhouse kicking 6 out of 10. And there we have it, that's season 9! Anything you think I was right on? Wrong on? What was your favorite episode? Least favorite? Let me know in the comments below. And if you like what you saw, consider liking, subscribing, and telling your friends. We're out here. Season 9 was definitely a pivot back to peaks and valleys, and some of the weakest episodes of the show so far. They're still not unwatchable, except for maybe the Valentine's Day episode, but it is a noticeably wobbly season quality-wise. Granted, we also just got some of the best episodes yet and great introspective adventures. There's still plenty to love about the show, and next season we'll get even more to appreciate. We'll get a very special Tuttle appearance, a cryptid hunt, and 2 fun guys. My favorite diagrams of Venn, so I'll see you all again when we review Season 10. Anyway, that's going to do it for us here at the Lecture Hall, and if you want to just support the channel, consider joining our Patreon or membership program today. $2 a month, and you get special polls, posts, and even your name on this fancy list. Ooh! Thank you all so much for watching, and remember to stay strong, keep fighting that good fight, and never forget that you matter. Even if you just woke up today, I'm proud of you. A rising tide lifts all ships, and I can feel one hell of a wave a-coming. Goodbye, everybody, and I'll see you all next time.